So this is generally the idea with the Arctic Council as it stands right now. You can see here that Russia owns a large portion of the frontage on this, but they're also significantly further back than, Denmark or Canada, and this is kind of part of the argument here. Russia wants to claim um, all their half of the Arctic, which is a very, very significant portion, and it really hacks into Canada's. Whereas if Canada was to extend their traditional maritime border out the same distance that we see from the Russian one at its peak, they would be overlapping. Canada would be entitled to something more similar to this, and so this is the problem that's coming about: is that everybody can't get the piece that they want. And the American interest in this is particularly insignificant, even on our diagram here. But if Canada only gets this much of an extension from their territory, speaking laterally, like out this way, then how can Alaska claim a whole piece of the pie like that? And Norway too. It's they have a significant settlement here at Svalbard, but it's really not proportionally representative here. And what is becoming the problem is that Canada and America would just much rather get Greenland involved and Norway and have this, and this is going to become kind of a contentious area, I would think. America and Russia have been traditionally enemies for a long time, and even now they back a lot of different interests. And bringing them both to a front like this seems kind of dangerous. And the main reason it seems dangerous to me is because it's military that is making the new establishment up there. It has to be, apparently, because there's no commercial enterprise. Who's going to pay just to have people up there watching it? And so that's kind of what you're seeing. And in April of this year, Russia actually sent troops up, dropped them off at the North Pole by parachute, and has had them conducting surveys across here, and mapping it out as best they can. And so Canada's response has been to send out rangers, you know, this sort of a pattern. And rangers are basically Inuits, who are hired by the government to keep tabs on what's happening around there. You can join the rangers in any province, mostly, but as a part of the Canadian Armed Forces. But in the north, it's mostly Inuits, and they train them specifically to go out and keep track and tabs, and they do all sorts of environmental work for the government. And also for the armed forces, they do reconnaissance. But this is the problem you can see developing: is that this is, no matter what kind of happens, it seems like someone's going to be shorthanded. Now, this image here is much more of a science image than a law image or any sort of thing to do specifically with our study here. But I want to show quickly, this is what I was talking about with the aurora borealis, and you can see that there's an awful lot of concentration of activity around the poles. And that is what I'm talking about when I say there's huge hydroelectric potential, well, not hydroelectric, but electrical potential. Science is just getting into this, but these sort of energy lines, or flux ropes as they've been called, a few different things, but they have huge amounts of electrical energy that just exists because of our planet's interaction with natural phenomena in the solar system. And it's recently become of great interest to science, and it's, I think, a big part of why the Arctic sovereignty debate has really come to the forefront all of a sudden, because this could really kind of tip the balance of a lot of things if it was to go a certain way or another certain way, according to international law and establishing legal precedent. This is sort of the first territorial free-for-all land grab in the 21st century. So it's interesting to see where the stage is at now and where it might go. And again, this is just showing, this is sort of the area of most activity of the magnetic fields of the Earth happens right at well, there's two different, there's one called the true pole, which is sort of the dot center of the Earth, and then there's the magnetic pole, which is the pole where all this activity is happening. And this is, of course, what gives us magnets on the Earth and all this sort of stuff, is this high intense energy from space. And the relationship between the mechanics of the Earth and the Earth's place in the solar system and life and all this stuff is only just sort of being unraveled. And so this area has recently become of great interest to many nations. So the problem with sovereignty is this: the Arctic is the north polar area of the Earth. Sovereignty is the localized autonomous government of a region or people, which means that, that area, there is an established group of people or a system or a parliament or whatever that is in place, that is in effect, that is legitimized and ratified by the citizens of that area, and acts as that area's official representative in negotiations and, deals with the planet. And of course, the problem is in the Arctic, there are no inhabitants, we're told. There are certainly no permanent cities. There is not a parliament or anything that you would recognize nowadays. And there has never been a claim on it. So, how do we deal with this new frontier, which has kind of always been before us, but has always been beyond us? And the one big problem is, who do you ask? Who do you talk to? It's a new kind of phenomenon. The South Pole went through a bit of a different process because people were able to just land there and kind of carve out territorial claims like happened in Africa. But if you land in the Arctic and claim a sheet of ice and it melts, do you still have that claim, down to the ocean, or what is it? This kind of changes a lot of our ideas about traditional land ownership and expansion in modern economy and in modern statehood.